Hello, everybody, and welcome back to, if you're coming back and if you're new, hello, to My Livelihood, our podcast with my husband and partner in crime, Ed K. Smith. Hi, Ed.
Hello, hello. How are you all?
And our wonderful guest, Paula Smith, today. Hi, Paula.
Hello, Lois. Hello, Ed. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Paula. How you going?
I'm good. How are you two doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Fantastic.
And this is episode 12, so we have made the dozen, not the baker's dozen, but the dozen. So you're very special today, Paula, as our 12th guest.
You're very
12th episode. We've actually, Ed and I riff occasionally by ourselves, and have a bit of a chat. So, but it's lovely to catch up with you again and see you. And we did see each other in person not that long ago, but it's nice to see you over the digital realm as well. For those people watching, Paula looks lovely in her special studio there in the hills, her digital studio. But if you're listening, you'll just hear her dulcet tones today. And you might be wondering, who is this enigma, Paula Smith? Well, Paula helps people make an impact through what she calls presentation intelligence. And I noticed, Paula, that is registered as a, I guess, a trademark or becoming a trademark, and leadership communication. So Ed and I have both known Paula quite some years, quite some even perhaps edging to decades. And and yeah, we've had lots of interactions, done some bits and pieces together. I've actually been on the receiving end of Paula's training in a good way. In a good way. And so we might talk about, Cert 4 of old and things like that, which I did under a bit of duress, but Paula made it a fantastic experience. I'd heard how Cert 4 is a nightmare, and Paula made it not a nightmare, actually really, really fun.
That was
so
many years ago.
That was a long, long time ago. So Paula, can you give us a little kind of synopsis of what you're doing now? And then we're going to delve back into a little bit of your past, go down memory lane.
Excellent. So what I'm doing now, well, I guess I'm in the same niche or the same industry, and most people know me for the world of powerful presenting, or of course, like you mentioned, my trademark is presentation intelligence, which is really leadership from the front of the room. And it's the art, science, and practice of powerful presenting. So, and of course, my master's research was in leadership communication and leadership from the front of the room and the power of story. So I'm still in that world of presenting, and but of course I have a training company on the side, and I work in leadership and teams and presenting and all the real good fun stuff that comes along with owning your own business and running a busy training company.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So the world of presenting, and it's great because Paula presents on presenting and she presents as well. So she's very much walking her talk, everybody. So Paula, one of the reasons we wanted to get you on My Livelihood, not just because we think you're fabulous and we want to have you on as our guest, but also I know we've had chats about this before, but you really were an entrepreneur at a very young and tender age, weren't you? When did you first make your foray into being in business for yourself?
Well, what you might not know, I think my first introduction to entrepreneurship, I was 9 years old. So maybe a little bit younger than you think. My first real business, I was 19, but my first introduction to entrepreneurship, I was 9 years old, and I started running local puppet shows in my front garden. And I charged the kids in the street 20 cents per person to come and watch my amazing talent running these puppet shows. And I thought I was doing a great job. And the whole reason behind that is we needed to go to the Royal Show. And I thought that I would just save some extra money, and that would be a really good way of saving some money to go to the Royal Show, as money was a bit tight when I was growing up. And anyway, my mum found out what was going on, and I thought she was going to be so impressed. But she said I was profiteering from my friends and I needed to give all the money back. She just did not appreciate my entrepreneurial efforts there.
But it was just a value exchange. You were providing.
I know, right? Yeah,
that's like, oh dear.
So, but it certainly gave me a taste of making my own money, and I was really quite excited. But I was also loving there was no such thing as computers back then, so we were hand making brochures, and I was popping it into the letter boxes of the kids in the street, and I just loved the whole project of running this little business of puppet shows. And of course, that continues through my teenage years. Car washes and doing all sorts of odd jobs for people. But I guess my real introduction, well, not my introduction, but my real business, I was 18, nearly 19, and started a personal development school for kids. So I had always loved speaking and public speaking and performing. I grew up in an amateur theatre family. And so I started a small business after about 14 or 15 full-time jobs in lots of different industries. I finally came home and said to mum and dad one day, I know what I want to do now. So my long-suffering parents.
So hang on a sec. Let's just, did you say 14 or 15 full-time jobs from what age to what age?
Well, maybe we should take a little step back to when I was at school.
Okay, this is after the puppet show. This is
after the puppet show.
This is post puppet show, pre going into business.
So going into business. So I started a new school. We moved, and we moved to we were in the country, and we moved to the outskirts of the city. And I started a new school when I was 15, and that's a pretty tough gig when you're 15 starting a new school. So I was 6 weeks into this new school, didn't have a lot of friends, and I was struggling a little bit just to sort of fit in with my new environment. And there was a competition that said who would like to run and MC all the school assemblies. And I just thought, what a wonderful opportunity. Now, I'm thinking, what 15-year-old wouldn't want to do that? Because everyone wanted to do something like that. So I put my hand up, put my hat in the ring, and the principal called me into the office and said, congratulations, Paula, you've got the gig, which I thought was a little bit strange because there hadn't been any auditions or anything like that. I thought, someone must have told him I was pretty good, up there on the platform. Now, he confessed to me at the end of the year, I was the only person in the entire school who had put their hand up to say, pick me. But a remarkable thing happened because, like I said, I was a new kid on the block, and next minute I was on that stage and I was visible in front of the whole school.
Bingo.
In 2 or 3 weeks, I was voted in as captain of Red. Now, you don't know how important that is at your school, but captain of the Red sports team was a pretty big deal.
Yes.
And 3 weeks later, I was voted in by the whole school as head girl or president of the student council.
Wow.
And the only reason that is because I was standing up on that platform and I was visible, and people got to know, like, and trust me. So I learned at a really early age the power of speaking, the power of being visible, and all the, the likability, and I was organised, etc. But it was just such an impactful moment of my life when the penny dropped. It is like that's why I'm succeeding in this school. So fast forward from those experiences, I wanted to teach other kids and colleagues and friends, people who were a bit nervous about speaking. I wanted them to teach them that they could do it, that it wasn't a scary thing, that anyone could stand up and have the confidence to speak out and become more visible. So then of course I left school, and I didn't want to go directly to uni. I went to uni later on, but I started working, and I had so many different jobs, from journalism, selling shoes, you name it. I did it for those 14 those first years.
Don't tempt Ed Paula by saying you name it, because he will.
You name what? Yeah. She'll know them all, don't worry.
But I learned something from every single one of those experiences. And but I did get to about 18 or 19, and I did a small business course when I was 18. And I thought, this will be fun. I didn't even know anyone who had a small business. My parents, both mum was a stay-at-home mum. My dad had a traditional job. None of our family friends had a business. But I just came home one day. I said, Mum, Dad, I think I know what I want to do. I want to be the boss. Of course, as every 18-year-old wants to do. They just want to be the boss. No skills, no education, no money. I just want to be the boss. But I was really serious. So I started a kids' personal development school. And I just thought it would be a little bit of a side hustle. And while I still worked full time, I was working for a company, part of the Sunday Times actually at that stage. Mm-hmm. And I had just met my husband. I was very young, met my husband. We just put a deposit on for a house. And my husband said, you can't leave your job because we need the money to pay for mortgages, etc. And I said, well, if I can replace my full-time income, you know, can I then leave? So of course he said yes. And within 6 weeks, I had replaced my full-time income with this kids' personal development school. So I started with 15 students and then 30 students and 75 students, but I didn't have any money when I started to do any marketing. So the only way I knew how to grow the business was to speak about it. So I put my hand up and went into schools. Now, don't laugh, but I spruiked at the Rockingham Sunday markets. And I was spruiking, and I had a little table with my brochures and flyers, etc. And before I knew it, I had a business of over 100 students. Wow. And within a couple of years, I had 500 students attending classes each week. And that's when I decided that I think I might go to uni. As some of the mums and dads of the kids that I was teaching saying, can you come into our workplace and do what you're doing with the kids in our workplace? And
that's a great advertisement, isn't it? Saying, how impactful you'd been with the kids, yeah.
And I was really comfortable with the kids and teaching, and I've always loved to teach others. So I started going into workplaces, and I just fell in love with training. So although I was training quite intuitively at that stage, I didn't really know why things worked. So that's when I decided, I thought, well, now's the time to go to uni. So, but I was still running my business, and I think I'd maybe had 1 or 2 children at this stage as well, and decided to go to uni and do training development and human resource development and counselling and anything I could learn about communication and teaching and training. So I became a bit of a study junkie there for a while. And then my business just evolved, but I knew there was only one of me, and there was only so many kids that I could teach. So I went down the hiring staff and hiring teachers and training teachers. And even then I just knew I could make a bigger impact. So decided to go down the franchising route as well. So I ran away to the other side of the country and went to the University of New South Wales and did some franchising studies, and then came back and launched my franchise business. And within a couple of years, we had about 2,500 kids in classes each week and 14 franchisees. And when I say kids, I use that term really loosely, because my youngest kid or my youngest student was 3, and my oldest one was 73.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That is broad.
It's a
very range.
Very broad. And I started a registered training organisation as well. And so I had that business for many, many years and loved every part of it.
Yeah, brilliant.
I think that's an interesting story in the sense of that it is an interesting story on its own, but you hear this all the time. Like, there's people who are entrepreneurs and they say, I started doing such and such at this age. And often it's, when they were 10 or 11 or 12, and, the common lemonade stand is always one you hear, but lots of other things. And a lot of the guys I follow who are extremely successful, some of them multimillionaires, billionaires, did stuff like that. And I think that you can't really, well, you can teach it, but it's either in you or it's not. There's a lot of people that just, they'll never have that spark to go and do their own thing and be their own boss. So it's interesting how it was there.
No, I think people have different pathways into entrepreneurship. Like, I do a lot of business coaching now and have done for many, many years. So I sometimes work with the accidental entrepreneurs and the people who have got a product first and never dreamed that they would run a business. Yeah. And then there are others who are just entrepreneurial in nature and have had multiple business, which was maybe, a little bit like my story. Mm-hmm. But each of them has a purpose for being an entrepreneur. And I guess one of my strongest purposes or my values is I wanted to be a good mum and I wanted to be there for my kids. So being an entrepreneur or having my own business enabled me to not miss Pancakes Day, or not to miss those sports days. I could try to be the best mum I could and still have the freedom to be my own boss and run my own business and earn my own income. So I think the family balance was such a driver in me staying in my business as well.
Yeah, that's great, Paula. And also what I heard, I think, early on when you were talking about, your mum and maybe some of those money mindset things that happened early, and you obviously had that real urge to just go and do it, you know, and forge ahead and start your own business. And some people get really, you know, pulled back by that. I'm sure when you're coaching people in business, that can really trip them up sometimes. So I think that's something that you have in your toolkit already that's really probably helped you a lot, you know, through the years. And probably, I'm guessing ups and downs, you know, because business isn't always plain sailing. And, you know, I remember when we were connecting over you doing the Cert 4 as it was back in the day. And, you know, running an RTO is no mean feat, you know. So I thought, you're very special. You're a special breed, you know, running an RTO.
And for those who don't know what an RTO is, what's an RTO?
A registered training organisation, yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes, the world of compliance and vocational
Indeed.
education training. And I've been in and out of that world, you know, multiple times. And because, you know, I know it serves such a great purpose here in Australia as well. But, you know, and I'm very much pragmatic in my nature, but having the innovation, the entrepreneurial side, I can be a bit of a rule breaker. And some of those things don't always
compliance, entrepreneurship.
So I've written a few nationally accredited courses, you know, to have that innovation, but still try to fit into the world of compliance as well.
Yeah, it's a tough gig. It's a tough gig. And also I remember, Paula, a few years ago now, you wrote a book, didn't you?
Yes, I've written several books.
Several books, yeah. Yes, I was just thinking of the one in particular that I think it was your first. Was it your first, Speaking in the Shower?
Yes. So
launched in Guildford.
So Speaking in the Shower, Presentation Skills Exposed was my first book.
Yep.
And that's a real light-hearted read. I used to call it an aeroplane read. If you jumped on a plane between here and Sydney and you just got stuck into it, you could finish it at the other end if you're a fast reader. And that was in school libraries as well. It was a really nice, easy read for teenagers as well as adults, as well as people putting together their presentations for the first time. Then my next book had a much more corporate feel, which was Powerful Presentation Principles, which now is actually a full online course. And the lessons and principles in that book I've been using for many, many years in my presentation skills workshops.
Yeah. You sound like you've taken things to the other level as well in terms of integrating with how the brain works. Is that right? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so that was Neuro presenting. There was one book in between the Neuro presenting one, which was Sell Your Story. And that's where I interviewed many other entrepreneurs and business people, such as yourselves, who had a story to share about how they started business. So Sell Your Story was a compilation of business stories, but people selling their expertise. As a business, all their stories. Yes, and then I started to develop Neuro presenting, which is also a piece of written work as well. And Neuro presenting, which is also a trademark, is definitely about presenting with the brain in mind. So myself and a colleague, we were in Malaysia training. We developed a 10-day course for academics in Malaysia. And we had some NLP and some powerful presenting and some neuroscience. We blended into this amazing course. And then when we got back to Australia, we formalised it. And I think when I met you, maybe Lois, you would, it was the time I developed my diploma of presentation skills, which is a qualification.
Right, yeah.
So, and it was coming a little bit tied, so adding the neuroscience into that qualification, and then we had reaccredited. But interestingly enough, it's professionals who wanted the learning, but not necessarily the qualification.
Yeah.
So I deliver more professional development, sort of 3 days immersion on Neuro presenting rather than the full qualification now.
Yeah. So when you were, you know, zipping around Malaysia and here and over East for presentations and doing speaking engagements and that sort of thing, and then of course, yeah, things have changed somewhat slightly, or more than slightly of late.
And well, zipping,
and
the zipping is gone.
We obviously all have some colleagues in common who, you know, speaking has been their 100% income, you know, mainly been platform speakers and engaged by conferences and things like that. So, you know, we've been laughing a little bit about some of these words that come out. You know, it's unprecedented, and the other favourite is the pivot. But you know, yes. the pivot is real. The pivot is real. So tell us a little bit. How did you pivot? Because I'm imagining some of that would have affected you as well.
Yeah, it's been a real interesting year, and not just myself, but as you said, our whole industry. And we were one of the first industries to go all conferences got cancelled very
Yep.
quickly.
Just like
And
that,
just like that, within I think a 48-hour period, every email or phone call that I got was, I'm so sorry, Paula, this event has been cancelled, etc.
Yeah.
Been doing a lot of coaching on Zoom for many years. My clients are all over Australia and some internationally.
Yes.
But that part of my business didn't really stop, although I gave everybody the option to put their coaching on hold, while they caught up. And but most of them wanted to continue. So that part of my business continued. And I think I was already working from home in the hills. So that wasn't too different either. And so I still got to work from home, which was great. I still got to coach, but some of my training programs had to go virtual. So that was a bit of not a learning curve as in methodology, but definitely in the tech side. It's, I'm comfortable in front of the camera. I was comfortable with methodology, and running webinars and those things that I was quite okay with, but running a live masterclass for 4 and 6 and 8 hours virtually.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a bit of a challenge to start off with, but it can be done. And once you say it can be done, you just get better at, how can I be of service to the people in their lounge rooms or in their home offices rather than being in that classroom. And it wasn't just a matter of pulling your whole course and then doing the exact same thing online. You had to redesign your entire course to make it virtual friendly.
Yeah.
So it was a great challenge and it all worked. And but now, of course, we're going back to face-to-face and blended. Some are choosing to do a little bit more face-to-face and virtual, in the same course.
Absolutely.
So it's
good.
Definitely forever changed. But it's certainly everyone has seen what's possible to do virtually and still be of service to their clients.
Yeah, that's right. And you put the online modules together as well for a professional speaking. It was a speaking masterclass. Is that right? It's a presentation skills masterclass.
So now that was something that I've never given myself permission, the time to do hundreds of hours. Lots of small webinars. So I go, right, I've got a bit more time in my hands. So I created my signature program, which was Exceptional Presenter. And the tagline was Powerful Presentation Principles, which was from my second book. So I've put my entire 52 presenting principles in a self-paced online masterclass now. So it's got over 50 videos, hundreds of resources and templates. And so anyone, anywhere in the world now can press a button and have access to the full course. But as well, there's still room for chats online, etc. So although it is self-paced, they still have a little bit of access, to me and also the other students. Yeah, so it's a fun project, fantastic. A really good fun project as well. Yeah. That will last longer than the pandemic.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing. And have you found that a lot of the clients you're working with have had a bit of a light bulb moment that they've been they've been forced to go into this sort of space and do things more digitally than they ever were? Have you found any positive stories that have come from having to go into that pivot, for want of a better word? Any clients you've dealt with that are having success with what they're doing through what you're teaching them?
Many stories. I think some are a little bit slower to get started. I think it's been interesting where people have said that it was quite stressful at the beginning. And I think, many people experienced a sense of grief for those first 3 or 4 or 6 weeks, when it happened. They had the loss of not going to work, the loss of that certainty. Oh, yeah. So I think people already working from home probably experienced less loss or less grief. So many of us just got on with it very, very quickly. So some of my colleagues who were already working from home, who probably experienced less loss, just got on to pivoting, if you want to use that word, pivoting rather quickly. And so started to put their face-to-face courses online pretty quickly. They started creating webinars. They started writing books, started creating more content. And others in retail spaces started to put shops online for their first time. Yeah. And the ones that are doing it well, I said, I can't believe we haven't done this before. So it's created a lot of opportunities for business owners as well. Not all business owners, you know, some have really struggled, and my heart goes out for them. And some businesses will just not survive. But other businesses will survive, but maybe will be forever changed. And other businesses will just look completely different at the other side.
Sure. Absolutely.
But lots of great success stories, lots of great success stories as well.
Yeah, because I know you work in a lot with business owners, Paul, and they do seek you out because you've had such a great succession of businesses. We won't spend too much time on it, but you did actually even have a foray into hospitality, running a hospitality business way back, didn't you?
Yeah, that was a Sunday drive moment. You know when sometimes you go on a Sunday drive and you buy milk. I went on a Sunday drive for 10 minutes, came back and said to my husband, I think I want to buy a hotel. And
as you do.
Yes, he swears to everyone. He's bald. He has no hair. He swears to everyone he had hair just before that.
Yeah. Of course, that's what you want to do.
Yeah, overnight we bought a historic hotel up here in the hills, and it was a bit of a challenge. It was a business that hadn't made a profit in about 30 years. Perfect business to buy. And but the interesting thing is people say, how did you get all the business back? And I said, I used speaking.
Yes.
So we didn't do all the marketing and advertising in newspapers, etc. I went out and spoke to all the local business groups, and I talked about the legends and all the history of this particular establishment, and we just got the business back.
Beautiful.
So speaking has always been my go-to marketing strategy for any business, and I've had multiple other businesses.
Yes.
Speaking has been my go-to marketing strategy.
That's fantastic.
Got to get on that soapbox.
Yeah. And then you sold that business at some point along the way. So you're probably grateful in a way you're not in hospitality now, perhaps.
Yeah,
it's nice to go and enjoy hospitality, isn't it, Paula?
Oh, look, I was having a great time. It's hospitality it's a people business.
Yeah, exactly.
And my husband loved the property side, not so much the people side. And I love the people side. But I think it doesn't matter what business you have. The foundations, you look after your staff, you look after your customers, and you look after your costs. And so, I don't think business is very difficult. I think we sometimes complicate it.
Sure.
And if you look after the basics, those principles can apply to most businesses.
Yes. Yeah. And obviously, marketing and using that strategy of speaking for you. I mean, that's your business card too. So when you are speaking, people want to engage you as well. What's the thing that fires you up the most about working with people in the presentation space? Because obviously some people maybe want to be better at work through it, or engage with their staff, maybe if they're a CEO, or they want to be more influential. So there's good reasons why. But as we know, many people find it really nerve-wracking, and for some terrifying. Yeah. So can you let us know what is it about it that keeps your interest after all this time too? Because you've been doing it for a while. Yeah.
I think because I just know from how powerful speaking is. And I live in two worlds. I live in the world of businesses and entrepreneurs, and then I have my corporate life as well. So when I work with corporate organizations, I have clients of CEOs, senior executives, or whole teams who I work with, helping them to master their presentation skills. And it doesn't matter where you are in your career, it's a must-have skill. It's not a nice-to-have skill anymore. When you can communicate well, when you can stand up and present in front of your peers, you're more visible. So if you're more visible, you're more confident, you'll accelerate your career. And really understanding, I think when I did my master's, I just wanted to dive more into human behavior and what it was about leading from the front of the room that is so powerful. And I think it's when you understand human behavior, you are much better in your communication skills. When you have a deep understanding of what makes people tick, whether it's the neuroscience, whether it's learning, and whether it's emotional intelligence, when you understand human behavior, you can communicate with them more effectively. When you can communicate more effectively, you can stand up and present to a bigger audience. Yeah. So I guess presenting is really that's where everybody knows me, but I love anything to do with high level communication skills and human behaviour.
Yeah, brilliant. And you've got a real love of learning, obviously, and a commitment to it. And sometimes we all love learning because we're in learning, but sometimes it actually is a commitment. You know, you've just recently completed a master's and you've done all of these other trainings, you know, learnings all the time as well. So, you know, we've bumped into each other at many events and functions along the years as well. So I know you've had a big commitment in that space. And I guess it's interesting talking about the presentation skills side of things. There are quite a few offerings in the market. So, you know, I mean, I came from the Toastmasters, you know, school, if you like, because I was told, oh, you need to present in your job. And I went, what? Okay. So I took myself off to Toastmasters. There's Rostrum. There's many people who teach presenting skills as freelancers and that sort of thing. So what do you feel, you know, probably just for our listeners who are thinking, okay, it's my livelihood of whatever I do, how do I stand out? But also, you know, we hear that term expert sometimes, and I'd just like your take on all of that as well.
So yeah, the whole debate of who's an expert.
Yes.
How do people choose? You know, how do people choose and discern?
I think people just need to do their homework, you know, when they're working, not just obviously with a presenting expert, with any expert. And, you know, have people got some runs on the board? Have they got personal experience with the topic? Number one, you know, and do they have a deep level of knowledge, not just through personal experience, but, you know, do they have qualifications in there, you know, as well? And I guess it's, you know, someone who spends their life learning about something, so you don't have to. So, you know, that's the person that you want to get to help you. So if somebody spent 6 months learning about something and then proclaims they're an expert, they might still have something to offer you. You know, I'm not saying that they won't have something to offer you, because they may have been on a, you know, a journey in that 6 months. But if you truly want to work with an expert, you know, look for things, longevity in the industry, you know, look for their qualifications, look for their personal experience, look for reviews, you know, look about who else they're working with. And it's not always the loudest person on the platform. It's not always the ones who are all over Facebook and social media, or, you know, whatever social media platform that you're on. And, you know, sometimes it is the quiet achievers in the background doing amazing work. And so just do your homework and look a little bit deeper than your social media.
Yeah, I mean, that's something Ed spends a lot of time with his clients, because they might actually have great credentials, lots of experience, you know, they've got everything really, but they're not being found as readily. But then there's maybe newcomers who are quite digitally savvy and they're perhaps doing that better. So yeah, it's quite challenging, isn't it? It's quite challenging for individuals who are offering their services, but also people that are trying to seek out those services sometimes, which of course is why we still have the word of mouth. And so your reputation and people finding you through various means, that's what we often find is the case.
But I guess it's a good message for experts as well, as you might be the expert in your field, but if you're not visible, then people don't know that you're around, and you might be the best kept secret. Yes. So I guess it's getting the balance right as well. You don't want to be too exposed. Otherwise people will go, you spend your entire life on social media, are you not actually doing any work? So it's getting that balance right about being visible for the right things as well, you know, staying in your lane, you know, writing blogs and providing value to your audience. And, but also, you know, spending that time learning as much as you can, and going as deep as you can into your area of expertise.
I think you'll find that that's a common thing. When Lois and I see it all the time, is there's someone who's getting a lot of the work isn't necessarily the one who's the most qualified to do that work. They just happen to be best at marketing themselves. Very common in saying.
Sometimes the best at communicating their message.
Yeah.
So I hear this all the time. You know, I work with a lot of academics, and they get a bit upset if they're not the person being asked to speak at a conference or run a training session at a conference. And I go, well, perhaps you're the second expert or the first expert, but the second expert is being asked because they have better communication skills and they're a much more engaging speaker, or they have the ability to communicate their message more effectively. So that's why the experts as well, they might be, you know, fantastic in their area, but they also need to learn how to communicate their area of expertise effectively.
Yeah, very true, very true.
It's
a tricky one, isn't it? Because also a lot of this relies upon excellence, doesn't it? The better you do, the more people are going to see you and refer you. And I think that's where we see a lot of people really have a solid income and a reliable income, is because of their reputation and that people refer other people to them. And that's all behind the scenes and quite quiet. But we still need the digital visibility and those other appearances, if you like, to keep things ticking. Yeah.
And there's so many places that you can go and be visible. You know, you've got, lots of the not-for-profits organisations and the meet-up groups all over, all over town that are always asking for people to come and speak. Yes. So, we do have a saying in the business, say, speak for fee or speak for free. But if you are speaking for free, make sure that it's your ideal audience that you're speaking to. So who wouldn't want to stand in front of 200 or 300 people of their ideal clients and have an opportunity to share about their area of expertise or their business and products and services?
Yeah.
So strategic. You need to be strategic, for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting though when you say who wouldn't want to. I'm thinking I can think of quite a few actually.
90% of the population.
Isn't that the worst thing though? I mean, it's the worst and best thing, because if you say, all right, I'm not comfortable, then seeking out someone like Paula to help you not only be comfortable but actually deliver with impact and presence, and then have people come to you afterwards and want to engage you, then I think I'd love to know what the percentage is, that of people that will actually step forward. I think it's smallish, isn't it?
I think it's becoming better now. 20 or 30 years ago, people go through their whole careers and never be expected to present. I work with a lot of graduates now. A lot of government organisations get me in to work with their graduates.
Yes,
so
good.
A lot of organisations now are saying, no, this is a career skill you need. The universities now are starting to lift their game and not just asking them to stand up and, deliver in the classroom, but learning some powerful presenting skills so they're ready to hit the ground running when they go into the workforce.
Yeah.
So I think it's an expected skill now. So but you hit the nail on the head. Something you just said a moment ago, it's not just about the confidence, about the impact that you're having when you're presenting as well. Because if it was just about confidence, it'll only be the confident people who stand up and present. Yes, it's about having the confidence to stand up and present, but it's also about having the skill to be able to communicate your message effectively, to be able to transform information into meaning for the people in front of them. It's about making sure that your message is memorable and has impact, and you have the right key messages in the right place at the right time for the right audience. So if you're going to be wanting to speak at conferences or speaking in front of groups of people, don't just think it's confidence, it's actually skill as well.
Very much so. And I think, culturally, we've probably come a fair way, us Aussies, but we probably have a bit more of a way to go, because when you think of our, friends in the US who, from a very young age, the kids are getting up and saying things in class. And I know that we do that here as well, but it just seems like they're very much more confident in general. I know it's a generalization, of course, but here it's great to see it in the sporting clubs and family unit and things like that. But perhaps it's still gaining momentum there in terms of a bit of a cultural cringe about not being the tall poppy or standing up in front of people and things like that, which, circling back to your lovely story, Paula, at school, was a great example of you being courageous and doing that, and it actually had a great outcome. So maybe we need more of those stories to be circulated.
Do you know what was really special, Lois? I went back to that same school last year to be their keynote speaker.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
So I hadn't stepped foot on my school grounds for 35, 38 years, can't remember how many years now. But it was so surreal walking back, into my school and standing on the exact same stage when I was 15 years of age, looking into the sea of faces. Now there was 1,000 students and the teachers, and I got to share my story as being a student at that school.
Oh.
And I was addressing their leadership team and their graduate, team as well about what was possible after school. And it was just such an honour and a privilege to stand up and address your old school.
Yeah.
Full circle moment.
It really was. Yeah, it was a real privilege.
That's great.
That's cool, because it is such a weird thing when you're at high school, because if people were to tell you the things that would unfold in the next 30 years or so, you'd go, no. I mean, I think back to when I was at school, and like, as you were talking about computers, I was one of the first people in our high school to learn about how to use computers, and they're exceptionally basic computers. But it's like, you think, a lot of the jobs that we have now and do, like my role as a digital marketing agency didn't exist. Digital marketing didn't exist. The internet didn't exist. So it's like all these things happen. But I think I think something that is universally sound and valuable is what you teach, and I think that's something that everybody, regardless of what space they're in, should have some degree of comfort and skill with. But it is a big challenge, and so most people I speak to, you would never be able to get them up on stage, or even doing this, recording a podcast, or they don't have the confidence. I find that sad. So what are some of the things that you can do to help people and encourage people to get past that initial, I'm too scared, don't feel confident?
I think a lot of people put the emphasis back on themselves. Is how will people judge me? What if I don't sound the best? What if I don't look the best? The second you move that energy to the audience is, how can I be of service to the audience? What have I got to share? What's my gift for the person in front of me?
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone ever in my 30 years of standing up presenting has woken up in the morning and said to themselves, how can I mess up Paula's presentation today?
Yeah.
So in fact, they're not thinking about me at all. They're thinking about, how they're going to get to the venue, what's going to be in it for them, how will they catch up at work? I hope there's going to be some value today for them. They don't really think of me at all. And when I'm being on stage, my only question should be is, how can I be of service to the audience?
Yep.
So what's my gift? What can I share with them today that will help the people in front of me to reach their goals? And so I think the first thing people have to do is say, yes, I will present. And then always, start with the end in mind, or the goal in mind. So say, yes, I will present. And then go, well, how will I do this now? What gaps do I need work with? Do I need help with my confidence? Do I need help with putting a presentation together? Do I need help with my slides if I'm using slides? But you always have to start with saying yes first. And the first one is always the hardest. And as you both know, you've both presented, you're both doing these podcasts, how difficult it was maybe the very first time you had to do it. And now even in this podcast, you're number 12 in. How much effort did you think about that this morning compared to the first one that you were doing?
Well, I must
this
say,
is about my 400th. This is about my 400th podcast. But I remember the first ones. I mean,
I'm still a newbie.
But you're dead right, because when I started my first podcast in 2007, it was like, I was like, far out. Do I really want to do this? What do I know? But I took it. I sort of shifted it in my head. I thought, this is an experience coming from two ways. I want to learn, and I was interviewing people, so it was a similar sort of setup in terms of podcast. Thought, well, the best way for me to become an expert is to study other experts, interview other experts, find out what they know, and then share that information with other people. So it's a sort of like, everyone's benefiting from the process. But I didn't think that I knew everything. I didn't think I knew anything. I thought I knew basically hardly anything, but I thought I know how to ask questions. So if I just put one foot in front of the other and ask some basic questions and get the ball rolling, and that's how it all progresses from there. So, and the amount of people that I've had conversations with over the years have said, oh yeah, watch that podcast or that episode, and that was fantastic, and I learned this, and now, you don't know. So I think if you just stay hidden in your shell, you're not getting to share not only what you know, but what other people know. So go for it.
The opportunities that have been created from that moment to now, the people that you've got to meet, that you can call friends now, as well.
I get chills down my spine when you said that, Paula. It's like, I think if I hadn't done all those things, all the people I wouldn't know and make connections with around the world and have seen and talked to, and it's scary to think if I hadn't done it. So I think I think coming from that perspective, there's a huge amount of lost opportunity if you just don't put that foot out there and take a step.
Yeah.
And I would say, if anyone's watching this, who would you classify, Paula, as your ideal client? Who is it that you would like to come and contact you to get some training and some help with from what you do?
Oh, look, I know we do work on personas. But if I have a look at the diversity of my clients, so this week I'm working with TEDx presenters. So tomorrow I've got rehearsals all day helping academics and TEDx presenters. So who is not my typical client, but some of those people that I'm working with would be a typical client. I worked with large organisations, some of Australia's largest organisations get me to work with their teams. So in that moment, they are my ideal client.
Yes.
But then, the next day after that, I'm working with a small business, maybe helping 3 or 4 of their key people put together some presentations and some marketing presentations. My ideal client is somebody who is passionate to make an impact. And whether that's a corporate client, a senior executive, or a graduate from school, if they want to develop their presenting skills or their leadership skills or the communication skills, they are my ideal client.
Yeah.
It doesn't really answer your question, really, does it?
No, it does. But the thing is, because you've created, and this is a great thing, and Lois has done this too, because you've created a course, you can accommodate a wider range of people. I think it's a good thing for people to keep in their minds, because some people may not necessarily be able to afford your consulting fees, because you are one of the best in the country at what you do. So you're going to charge accordingly. And that's what people have to also get a mindset with how they deal with how they charge. But you've created learning possibilities and training so that if people don't necessarily want to engage you one-to-one, they can go and do the course. So how is it they best get in touch with you, Paula? What's the best way to reach you?
Everything leads back to my Paula Smith website. So which if they just Google paulasmith.com.au, they'll find me. So everything leads back to there. So my training company, which is the Global Institute of Training and Presenting, even though that has its own website, there's a link from there to my website. There's my online academy, which you can press a button on my website and it takes you to the online academy. And it was a great point you said about, experts and prices. And you're right, there is only one of me. And I get a lot of requests. And sometimes, people may go, wow, it might be a little bit out of their budget to work with me. So that's a good reason why I put an online course together, because it's cost effective to have deep level learning, but perhaps not have that level of private coaching. Sometimes people do the whole course and then just book one session with me, which is fine as well.
Yep.
So, and that's a great way for other experts, if, they are struggling with that time, put some online courses together, some virtual offerings. And it's a great way to reach a much wider market, and you can afford to be that little bit more cost effective as well. And that's why a lot of experts write books as well, because somebody can have a snapshot of your skills and your expertise for $25 in a book. So that's a great way of learning from experts as well.
No,
I found the online learning fantastic for that flipped learning. So that people could gather up the theory and the information and then have a session with you. So it's cost effective, time effective, and it gets sort of straight to the hub of the matter. That's fantastic, Paula. Thank you for sharing your wealth of wisdom with us today.
And there's still so many years left to go.
Absolutely.
That's it. Yes.
More books. More fun.
We are just babies.
Yeah.
Oh.
So thank you so much for inviting me to come and share with you again, you guys. And
our pleasure.
And for a continuing relationship with you for many years to come.
Yes,
absolutely.
Likewise. So, yes, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We appreciate you watching this episode number 12. Very exciting. Many more.
Special episode, apparently.
Apparently, very special. So, thanks, Paula. And we'll see you on the next episode. Stay safe, stay happy, and be bold. Bye for now.
Bye.